Welcome to another edition to Talking with Kevin and Son. This episode is brought to you by RMK Productions and the 10 United Podcast Network. Hi, I'm Kevin McLemore. I am your show host. I'm a four-time published author, mentor, coach, and some people call me the mindset messenger. I don't know what they're talking about, but this episode is brought to you by RMK Productions and the 10 United Podcast Network. Our mission is to give you power to your voice, inspire, share stories, experience, and perspectives using the framework of teaching, learning, and modeling. Our purpose is very simple, folks. We want to help other people every single day. So, whatever the objective is, successful people like my guest today, they create a framework around their day-to-day lives that not only enhances theirs, but many times they pour into others. Our guest today is a communication specialist, a relationship strategist. Because of the demand in his schedule, it has almost taken me 3 years in order to get him on my podcast. And I want to warn you today, all right, my guest today, he's a straightforward, tell it like it is type of person. And when it comes to addressing current issues, life and relationships, this man pulls no punches. With
Yeah.
over 14 or 15 years of experience in sales and management, leadership experience, and in training, our guest, he has worked for, I want to say Fortune 500, but I think it's
Yep.
Fortune 100 companies,
100. Yep.
has managed and have developed several software startups.
Mhm.
Let me be the first to say, in the everyday grind that we have today, the struggles that we have are real. Today, we'll be talking about how this show can create better conversations in present day conversations, how we can show up or when to win, or are we trying to understand? And if you stay long enough, maybe you will learn the difference between this is going to get you people an argument and a debate. All right.
Ooh.
So let me welcome to our show, the poet that you don't know yet, um, Albert Einstein's poker partner and a good friend, Mr. Alex Evans. Welcome to Talking with Kevin and Son.
Well, it is true. Hey, Kevin, it's truly a pleasure. Being on your show, you did dog me for 3 years, and I finally showed up because I had to get ready.
Man, you know something, I am going to tell you, for the last 2 years, I have not had to ask for one single person to be on my show. Everyone else has been a referral. You're someone that I talk to on a
Yep.
day-to-day basis.
Yep.
You're a busy man, and I have hounded you. I have begged you for different conversations. When I released my book, Dating with the Full Deck, I said, come on, let's talk about relationships because in our private conversations,
Hmm.
you a spin and a take on the way the conversation is that we're having
Yep.
versus the conversation that we're actually having.
Hmm.
And there's a lot going on in the world. When I say the
Yep.
struggle is real, we're going through some stuff right now. When you're
Hmm.
talking about, are we trying to win an argument or, what's really going on? And so we're going to touch base on this.
Hmm.
So just for our listeners, to give us a little background on you, you're a Philly guy, right?
Yep. Philly, Philly. Brooklyn born, Best Side guy, moved to Philly. But I'm an Eagles fan. I'm an Eagles fan.
I was going to ask you which team did you choose, and I was going to say, but by New York, thank you for Saquon Barkley.
Thank
New
you.
York fan. You guys don't know what you do. How do you strike gold and then give it away?
Hey man, some
It,
things are right under our nose, Kevin, and we don't really realize how good it smells to it. We look at it from a distance.
well, here in Philadelphia, we're proud of how it smells when Mr. Saquon Barkley in town. So, relationships strategist, communication specialist.
Hmm.
What does that exactly mean?
Well, one of the things, Kevin, little background about me, just as I was young, I was very observant. And I always like to look, I call myself a social scientist to understand the human dynamics and human behaviors as I was growing up. So I like studying people, engagement, interactions. I'm a curious person. So that lends itself to have me not fear the unknown or ask and put myself out there to be challenged with the thoughts that I may have. So One of the things I learned early in life, everybody do two things. Number one, they communicate with themselves, and then number two, they relate with themselves, and that determines the quality they're going to have with other people. So I always call it my IPR score. So what's my IPR score? Intra is me, myself, and now, right? Do I got the proper relationship, how I communicate and relate to myself? And usually that's broken down to my values, my beliefs, and my actions. And that can be how I cultivate it with the environment that I'm in, from a family dynamic, a social dynamic, and a cultural dynamic that plays into that, how I begin to develop. Then the other one I know is intra, that's me, just me, you, and others. So I look at it a couple of different ways. Um, what I try to do is help people repair human conversations, human connections, one conversation at a time, where they live, where they work, and where they socialize. But more importantly, is if a person has a good sense of themselves, they'll be able to act appropriately at work, act appropriately at socially, and then at home as well. So those are the three areas that all people function in. And what determines the quality of those is how, one, I see myself, and then how I gauge the purpose in which I go into those environments and converse with people about various topics.
All right, I'm glad you kind of opened that door because, like I said, the struggle is real.
Hmm.
How does one, because you said it's understanding who you are, and then
Hmm.
the person you show up at work, and then I forget what the third one,
The
but
social,
anyway,
social.
social aspect of it.
Mhm.
So let's go to the workplace. How can we show up better in conversations um, at work when there's so many conversations that we have to deal with outside of work? How does that conversation begin? How do we make that better?
Well, one of the things, if if I'm at work and I'm trying to understand Kevin, if I'm trying to understand Bob or Joe or Jen or Barbara, then when I begin to discover and uncover who they are, I do that by engagement. So number one, I engage by asking questions to get their perspective, to get to know them better. I become secondary in that conversation, not primary. Number two, one of the things I say, and you hear this mostly at the workplace, people say I can't show up my authentic self. Number one, I say that's not true. All of you don't need to show up all the time. It's what part of you that needs to show up in that engagement. Sometimes the full you don't need to be on display because the full you doesn't warrant that conversation in that context when you're working with others. Number two, the goal, the mission of the job is I got to first do my job first, right? Because that's what they pay me to do. And how I do that is how well I work along with others by achieving those goals. Too often, what I find out, people worry about getting along as opposed to doing their job. If you do your job thoroughly, for the most part, you'll get along with get along with others. So I always say, let the first things be first, right? And as you begin to converse with people, then whatever you expect of someone else, you should first expect it of yourself. If you want people to speak kind to you, respectful, courteous, honesty, then you should be honest, courteous, and respectful.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that. In my speakings, I tell people all the time is that people go out and they hire professionals to make their resumes look beautiful.
Yeah.
And then they hire interviewing coaches in order to make them sound
Hmm.
beautiful. And for the first 90 days, 6 months, they are a direct reflection of that resume, that interview, and then all of a sudden that real person shows up. They show up after a meeting in the water cooler and they start talking smack about, these meetings are worthless. It's not
Hmm.
it's not the best of my time. Oh, I am not working 60 seconds over 4 o'clock because they only pay me from, 8 to 4, wherever the case may
Hmm.
be. I'm not taking work home or whatever, or, I'm not making enough. So I'm back on social media looking for a job as an employer and to an employee, how do you get that commitment or communicate that commitment that it was hired from that employee and that relationship between the employer? How do you get it to go beyond that 6 months? Because retention is hard right now.
Yeah. Well, as I say, I think you should model what you expect, and you got to do with it in reason. So, from an employee standpoint, and the manager, I look at let me say it this way. I look at everything from a leadership position, right? Leadership at every level determines the culture and the context and how you communicate. And I always look at three C's. It's your conduct, your character, and your conversation, right? They begin to set the tone. Do they have the communication skills and the soft skills to work out those difficult conversations or people meeting and expecting their goals? And then what is needed for that individual from an individual standpoint and collaboration with the team to be successful? Am I providing the right coaching, right teaching, right environment so that person can cultivate the skills that they have within them with the team goal in mind? I believe once you set that kind of precedent, then people will begin to acquiesce to a large degree. Now, there may be some people who may not, you may have an introvert on your team. You may have someone who's an extrovert. You may have somebody who's binary in their thinking. You may have somebody who's very linear. So the leadership have to understand, do I put my people, my skill set people in the right position so they can succeed? And what are the other attributes or tools that they need to achieve that goal? The first goal I always say is not, wow, sorry about that. The first goal is not to really get along with people, is to do your job and let people know that we're here to support you so you can be the best version of yourself. So I think those things happen and how you negotiate those challenges and issues that you may have among your coworkers. Are you properly demonstrating that attitude and that mindset when it comes to that? You on mute, Kevin.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I got a little computer glitch back here. I'm trying to make sure the mic doesn't pick it up. So please forgive me if you get a
No
ping in
problem.
the background. But anyway, I often wonder because now everyone's about, you know, money, 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 money. I know when I was growing up, it was to show up to work and live up the commitment, the reason why they hired you to be the best at
Mhm.
your job. Now it's like, how much do I get paid and whatever. Um, in a good conversation and even in relationship, all right, we talk about winning. And I
Mhm.
know that if I have a conversation with you and we'll talk about debate and arguments later on,
Mhm.
me winning at something means that someone has to lose. And
Mhm.
then we got feelings. What's important in work and relationship? Is it the winning or is it the understanding part of the process of what we're going through?
Well, I have a saying, you can win and be ineffective, or you can be effective and by that byproduct you win. Right? So me, I look to be effective because winning, do you learn in winning? Most of the time, the question becomes, why do I want to win? Why do I want to be right? And that's probably predicated on me wanting to be affirmed. We want me wanting to be justified and validated. And we shouldn't, I think it's highly advisable not to put that much weight on winning because do you win when you learn? Are you learning at the same time? You hear a lot of athletes say, I didn't lose, I learned. And so now I can go back and make the proper adjustment to grow. But since we live in such a binary culture, it's all about winning. And when you have a zero-sum game of winning and losing in the conversation, most of the time they turn into dead ends. And I always ask people, what's your purpose for winning? If you believe you're right, what you need to talk to me for? There's nothing else to learn. And why do you need affirmation from me in order for you to be validated in this conversation? And more importantly, what's the goal of the conversation? How do you frame that in the right way? If you go into a conversation and say, and frame it from the beginning, and says, hey, I want to have a conversation today and I want to win. How would that turn out? Most people say, but it's setting the right framework. But if you do it in a very undermining way, how do that person feel when they walk away from that conversation? And what kind of environment, what kind of aura do you create from that type of mindset? Because today culture is zero-sum game. Somebody win, somebody lose. Who wins in a win? Who wins if you're right and I'm wrong in that binary perspective?
Yeah. Let me ask you this. I mean, you're
Yeah.
a lot smarter than um, I am. And so,
Okay.
we talked about this earlier. You got the high three-digit IQ. I just broke the barrier. being welcome in the club. So I get a chance to come into the room. I
Yeah.
don't have a seat at the table, but I can listen in. Um, People are going through a lot of stuff
Yeah.
today. All right. Is it appropriate to have the conversations when you are emotionally stressed by life itself? Not exactly family life, but just
Hmm.
life. Right now, we are bombarded
Yeah.
with information, some factual, a lot of it is
Hmm.
fiction, not truth. And we're being asked to make a decision. We're all divided, but we show up to work for a common cause. Is it unfair, as far as me being in a corporate situation, to be insensitive to the fact that my employees, especially my minority employees,
Hmm.
going through some stuff? Do I ignore it for profit, or do I profit from having an understanding and a conversation openly with my people? How should that be addressed, or should it even be addressed at all?
Well, I think that there's a study out um, that says poor communication in the workplace have cost $62 million per company in the United States based on poor communication. It's $250 million globally on poor communication by two critical factors: misunderstanding and oh, sorry about that. Misunderstanding and misinterpretation. So anytime anyone feels like they're not being supported at their job from an emotional perspective, from an intellectual perspective, in a place where they can nourish their capabilities, they call it the potential gap. They will work up to here, and you won't. They'll work hard enough that they won't be fired, but they won't work hard enough to excel at their job. So I do think it's critical because the mental health of your employees impacts your productivity, your profitability, and your proficiency in one, how they work with themselves in their individual jobs, and also how they collaborate with their team. So that's how I see that. Because as you all know, the saying goes, people lead people, not companies.
Right. My grandfather always said that education was not designed to make you comfortable. It's designed to make you think. And that's the reason why I have the poet, as you know it, podcast today. Um, I brought up the second topic that we wanted to talk about. And before we go to that, um, Alex, how do people reach you if
So
they
you
want
can go. So number one, you can go to my website is www dot the number four mankind mankind.net. You can find out a lot of information about me. And the reason why I named my company for mankind, because in the Hebrew and Greek, it means helper, and the other one means dog. So dog's man's best friend, and is helper of mankind. So the name of my company is for mankind. You can see me there, and you can check me out on the Relationship Lab on Instagram and YouTube as well.
I am so glad you brought up the fact the Relationship Lab. That's your podcast.
Yeah.
That's Instagram. I wish you had brought that up and I didn't have to do it. But there's an ongoing battle between the sexes. All right.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
What have you done for me lately? I'm a
Yep.
strong, independent woman. I don't need a man. There's a shortage of good men. Why is it that one race is always picking another race over their race or whatever the case may be? Let's start. Is this an argument or a debate? And what is an argument or a debate?
Well, let me put it this way. A debate is we have to frame the conversation and we got to have information on both sides so we can see things from a different perspective. That's number one. Number two, I don't think it's necessarily a debate. I believe what has happened in today's market is when we use binary terms like I'm independent. So when a man here, a woman is independent, or a man says a woman is independent, I always say words matter. So I would say instead of a woman is independent, a woman is self-sufficient. It sounds a whole lot better because when we hear the word independent, that means I'm not in need of you. But when we hear self-sufficient, that means you're a viable citizen and productive as a part of society. Now, what it lends itself to, I do believe is us versus them because of, I think there's a lot of voices in our head and their expectations based on narrowly defined gender roles. And I was out Saturday downtown and we went out to dinner and everything, and we began to get into these relationship conversations. And I asked this woman, I said, do we define the role between us or those roles predefined before we get together? And I think too often people have predefined roles and they don't establish the roles that they want to play in each other's lives with themselves and communicate that. And there's a song I want to share this, Kevin, because I think this brings up a very good point. Most of the time when you talk to people, and I say when I talk to people, I always tell people I want to talk to you. And they say, you are talking to me. I said, not yet. I'm talking to MSNBC. They said, I'm talking to Fox News. I'm talking to ABC, CBS. I'm talking to the sports channel. I'm talking to your friends. I'm talking to your brother, your mother. So what has happened is a lot of people got voices in their head and they haven't established their own authentic voice. And too often we don't find our voice in conversations, therefore we repeat what we hear. What do I mean by that? Rihanna got a song. It's called Monster. A lot of people may have heard of it. And this is what she says in the first four bars. She says, I'm friends with the monsters that's underneath my bed, along with the voices inside of my head. You trying to save me, stop holding your breath. And you say I'm crazy? Yes, you say I'm crazy. Well, that's not fair. So when we meet people and we begin to get into these conversations, do we come with the proper attitude? Do we come in with hidden expectations or healthy expectations? Or do we come in there with unreasonable expectations or hidden expectations that's already predefined before you meet me? And those biases impact and will determine how we treat one another as we communicate with them.
Has the internet complicated dating?
Yeah, I think it has. But Kevin, as you well and I know, the internet, social media is nothing but the virtual playground. The actors haven't changed, the playground changed. We went from concrete to the virtual playground. I still show what we brag, we look our best self. I call it resets. That's what I call social media. You know, I used to go out to recess and you hang out, you break away from class, you talk, yo man, I got these new kicks on. Yo man, look at my new hairstyle, look at my new gear. I come back from a holiday, I show all the great pictures and things of that nature. And the reason why I believe some of that happens because too often people haven't discovered who they are. Every human being looks for three things. Number one, who am I? Number two, what is my purpose and what I'm designed to do? Number three, what gets most people in trouble? We compare. If you don't know who you are, society will tell you who you need to be. They'll tell you where you need to go, what you need to look like, and what you need to have. And society, and sometimes in this culture, I tell people they hide you from you. When you find out who you are, you'll be free and you won't let others determine who you should be. And I think that's the missing on that. People are looking for things outside of themselves to validate the thing that's intrinsic to them because they haven't established their own identity from an internal process.
All right. What is a high valued man? I mean, you're a relationship specialist. I hear this all the time, and I listen to our sisters are all different colors, and they
Yeah.
talk. They Google who the guy they're going out with, and they find out if he's got a good job, he's got a 401k, how many children has he had. They want to know why he
Hmm.
got divorced or why he's still living in his parents' house, whatever it
Hmm.
may be. But they're offended if the man has done his homework and research on them, and the expectations of the man is just as high as the woman. What's a high valued woman when a man's looking for?
Well, it's
And the
funny.
reason why I'm asking them,
Right.
because I only hear women talk about asking a high valued um, man. I never hear a man say the same conversation. So I'm going to flip the script so that women can hear, and what exactly is a high valued woman in a man's eyes, if there's such a thing.
Well, sometimes I don't like using other people's terminology because it creates the framework and put me in a dead end. So
All
I'll
right,
say it.
then use yours.
No, 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 no,
Explain.
no, no. I love that. But so one of the things that I say with most people, right? And I shared this with men and women. And I think this is what happens too often when we categorize these things in a narrowly defined construct. I said it's highly advisable not to confuse how one looks and what one does with who one is. Because what happens is we look at people, he's a lawyer. Okay. But that's not who he is. That's what he does. She's a constitutional lawyer. That's what she does. That's not who she is. That person's attractive. That's an attribute. That's not talking about that. So here's a saying, one of mine, status gets you in the door, character keeps you in the house. When most people break up, it's mostly over character. It's rarely over status. And what we do is we give people things they don't have based on, once again, this narrowly defined stereotype. Oh, she looks this way, she must be this way. And then when she don't exhibit the behaviors that we have predefined based on the profession that they in, and they show something different, we're often disappointed. And same thing with a gentleman. Oh, he's handsome. Then when he exhibit behaviors that's contrary to what the picture we had painted for him based on the stereotype and how we've been conditioned, we often disappointed because we're associating behavior with the occupation and how they look as opposed to who they are. So for me, what's high value is character. And those two components would be, am I honest when I'm in front of you? And do I have integrity when I'm not with you? Those are the things that are more valuable than these things that fade away. Because as you well know, once you get in a relationship, once the euphoria and the adrenaline drops, that person is going to show up in that relationship. And I think if people begin to define those kind of characteristics and those attributes that are not tangible, like he has to have money. Now everybody know you got to live at a certain level. She got to be fine as all outdoors. And how do you want to describe that? Because too often people, even when they say they want someone to make a lot of money so they can be taken care of, it's not being taken care of, it's what kind of lifestyle I want to live. So most of the time, people don't have the right word to explain what they really want. So there are no good men around. I say good is never lost. The question is, are you good? So when good shows up, you'll be good for them and vice versa. So I think all these things we ask of others, we got to first demonstrate that thing ourselves. Whatever you expect of others, you should first meet that criteria in any rule. Do not make exceptions for yourself and then hold people accountable, which you're not being accountable for. I believe if you have that kind of mindset, a lot of things will be healthier in the beginning. And do make your intentions known. Kevin, here's a piece, here's a poem. This poem is called Games People Play. And in the first couple of lines, it says this. It says, men, be honest when you date. Let her know what you're serving on your plate. And it says, women, men shouldn't always have to pay because the hidden expectation might cause you to sway. Sometimes on a date, you can't kiss a man on the cheek because with one kiss, a man can become weak and it might be hard for him to stand strong on his feet. Now, flirtatious conversation can lead to a game of manipulation. And this is the game we play when we out there. I'm gonna make this move. I'm not gonna be transparent. I'm not gonna be honest. I'm not gonna tell somebody my real intention because if I'm honest, what is it gonna cost me? And that's why the games are being played. And a lot of people are not healthy when they going out there engaging in these conversations because their conduct is not lining up with their character and their conversation.
So is it better to be honest and direct on your first date, or play parts of the poem back to that person? How do you do that?
Well,
I'm going to tell you, I am
good.
so honest. No one wants to date me because I don't have time. I'm busy and whatever. And I look for someone that basically already has their life together. I do not want to build something on a weak foundation. I want something that's already established there. And this is just me. I've gotten to the point. I've been in the playground. I've been in the pit. I've been in that dark room and I've been it. And
Hmm.
so right now, I'm looking for a compliment. All right. Not an accent.
Yeah.
when it comes to my life. Is that wrong?
No, well, listen, I ask people two questions. Truth is hard to swallow. Deception is hard to forgive. What pill do you want? You may be
Is
mad
that the
at
red
me.
pill?
So listen, look, people may not like you, or they may be bothered by you being honest. But if you deceive them, it is hard to forgive you. You can always walk away with a clear conscience. The key thing is, are people getting right themselves so when the right person come along, they be the right person for them? I will say this, when people meet people, there's two things that need to happen. Number one, you got to work on you. And then when you get with somebody, you got to work it through. People looking for things that's already fixed. There's nothing fixed unless you fix. And then when you get together, you got to fix those things together. And you have to put the work in. And at times, I believe people want to do flash and dash. They get caught, they like the adrenaline and the newness, but are you willing to put the work in to be healthy? If thinking is an exercise, how often do you stretch?
Look at you. I told you he was a poet and didn't know it. Look at Hey, Alex, man, I'm going to tell you, Alexander, that's a strong name. And I named my oldest that because I wanted him to be a leader.
Yeah,
And so you are just that. Why don't you have a book, young man? I know, and I know this question because for three
yeah,
years I've been asking the same
yeah.
question, and you said I'm working on it.
So you
I'm
know what?
committing. I'm committing you right now. There's
You
10,000
committed it.
people. I'm 10,000 people right now hear me ask you this question is why doesn't Alexander Evans have a book out? The poet that knows it.
So Kevin, I'm gonna do you a favor, and I'm live with Kevin, so you can hold me accountable. So I have comprised content around this. I just have to coordinate it, and I'm thinking about some titles. So we'll talk about that, Kevin, because I may need
Wait a
your
minute, wait a minute,
coordination.
wait a minute, wait a
Wait,
minute.
wait, wait.
Thinking? Did you just hear all the conversation? Thinking? Wait a minute. How do we decipher that? Is that
An
well, it could be
exercise?
a debate, but we keep going about this for another 3 years. Could be an argument. It could
Yeah.
be one of those one, two, three things you pop up with. It could be an acronym. Write the
Yeah.
damn book, man.
Write the book. Okay, I will do that. I will do that. But you know what? When I come to you, I need a publisher, so we can talk about that. I know
You
you're a
know I own my
self-published
own
man.
label. I own my own label. RMK Productions and Publishing. I own that. So I got tired of going to um traditional publishers and begging to
Mhm.
have my work done and having them critique because what happens is a lot of times that people that don't look like us don't understand our stories. And when they don't understand our stories, and I'll do this with my last book and I'll put it out there. You
Mhm.
know, my book, Indispensable Games of X's and O's, is my story and how I grew up and how football
Yeah.
changed my life. I rewrote that 25 times. And by the time I took their advice, I didn't even know my own story. It was a different book. It had a formula. And that's when I just said enough was enough. And it's a lot like the conversation we're
Yeah.
having right now. You and I had this conversation, and I was trying to figure out how do we have a conversation about the events of life
Yeah.
without naming names, without
Yeah.
getting canceled, without being
Mhm.
attacked or losing our First Amendment rights or whatever. I wrote a song that said, "Just say it."
Yeah.
All right, and the chorus of the song is that we're being played and we know it.
Yeah.
We're being lied, and the truth is becoming the lie is becoming the truth, and no
Mhm.
one seems to care. Um, but I think there's peace and power.
Yeah.
And right now, when I look at it, I look at it because I grew up in a military family. This is
Mhm.
how the game is being played. All right.
Mhm.
You divide the people. So now they
Mhm.
know what each one of the groups are. Everyone's got a title now. Everyone's got an acronym now. So
Yeah.
they know where all the players are. So what happens? How do you in warfare, how do you confuse the public?
Yeah.
You find a situation that inflames a group of people. And what happens is when your cortisol level goes up, you blind and confused, and we look for someplace safe. So what happens is we normally migrate to the people that look like us that are in our
Mhm.
neighborhood and we start listening. We may not agree, but we're not strong enough to say, well, say something because the silence is your ability to be complicit.
Yeah.
Everyone agrees since you didn't say anything, you go along with it. And then what happens? You create a situation where you take gasoline to a
Yep.
fire. And before you
Yep.
know it, you find a reason to spill gasoline before fire becomes an open flame and then it becomes a inferno. And then what happens is, I'll tell you the truth, everyone's fighting in the street. So how do we communicate against the
Hmm.
lie, the truth in our real lives? And we'll end the story, the show with that.
So, Kevin, I think, I have it's interesting because I share this with people all the time. I can talk to anybody about anything, anywhere, because I have one principle. I don't look to be right. I look to learn and understand. And that's the water on the fire, right? And it's another two words, open and understand. And there's so much nuance with language because people believe that in order to understand me, you have to agree with me. Understanding do not mean agreement, right? And I think at times people don't understand the nuance of language. So here's a saying that people do too often in conversations. And most of the time in framing a conversation, what I find out, most people don't frame the conversation. So what do I mean by that? People just have conversations. So they'll go from something they watch and they'll jump from an opinion conversation to a fact conversation to an assumption conversation to a debate through a perspective and an argument. And what happens when people get exasperated and then a fact conversation, they'll say that's just the facts, but then they'll jump from a fact to an opinion. And I don't know if people know the difference between a fact and opinion, right? And then they'll jump to an assumption-based conversation and then say we having a debate. And what people do is, from a cognitive standpoint, they lose them where they are in a conversation. And then when they get exasperated, they go, I agree to disagree. And this is what I did the other day to a group of people. I said, number one, that statement is not even yours. That's the voice in their head. And I said, when you say you agree to disagree, we haven't established what we're going to agree and disagree about. That's your bailout clause. That's number one. And number two, because they think in order to understand me, you have to agree with me, right? And that's when people get exasperated. When people have binary conversations and don't give people an opportunity to define themselves by saying, when you say you are this, if you left, you right, what does that mean? Most people do implication and accusation when they talk in. They rarely ever ask for clarification, right? Somebody say, I'm conservative. I don't know what that means. I really don't. I know what it means to me. I don't know what it means to you. But if I predefine it, what it means for you, once I label you, it would determine how I treat you. And that's the problem. I ask somebody, when you see me, am I a blank piece of canvas before I meet you, or you already drew the picture before I even showed up? Most people don't allow other people to paint the picture of themselves while they're engaging with them. They already have a picture drawn of you. And then they looking to confirm what they already believe if they think in a binary way. What mitigates that is curiosity. What mitigates that is asking questions. Who are you? If you say to this, what does that mean to you? It is amazing when you ask people that, they say, well, you know what I mean. I say, no, I really don't. And people really haven't thought through their own theory. Remember, I said, if thinking is an exercise, how often do you stretch? When you asking people to stretch, when they think binary, they type. And as you well know, Kevin, being a trainer, if you don't work that muscle, it will lay in atrophy. When you put healthy tension on the muscle, it will grow. And when you continue to exercise that muscle, guess what you have to do as you build your muscle? You have to stretch it. And that's what people are not doing. That's why people are tight. That's why people get in arguments. And most people, I say, do you eat? Do you cook for yourself or do you eat what people feed you? Do you think for yourself or do you repeat what you hear? Those are the questions I begin to ask people. One of the ways to disarm people is asking questions, not determining how they should do. Yes or no. And before we close, I'm gonna say this, Kevin, because I think this is critical. We've been taught a lot of things in the world, and we don't often challenge it, and they took those things away. My thinking is this: how can a man create Alfred Binet, an IQ test to determine the intelligence of all human beings? And why have we given him that power? A French guy has determined in a binary way, putting a test together and determine the intellectual capabilities of all human beings. And we go by that criteria. That's number one. Number two, we've been told yes and no is a choice in a conversation. Yes and no is an ultimatum. When you determine the end of how I make a decision, that's not a choice. That's an ultimatum. Why am I saying all this? Because we've been told yes and no is a choice in a conversation. It's two or three more options. If you determine how I choose, it's not a choice. That's an ultimatum. And why I'm saying this, people need to know what words mean. Look up the word fact, look up the word opinion, look up the word perspectives, look up the word assumptions, and look up the word debate, and look up the word argument, and tell me what conversation that you're having. And most people get lost in conversation because they don't stay within context of the conversation because they want to be right. And when they feel like they're not right, guess what they do? I agree to disagree. I'm leaving. I'm getting mad. So the question is, do you want to learn? Do you want to be right? Or do you want to be effective? And that, if we get to that point by thinking critically, objectively, in a constructive manner, and if someone testing your theory, you should be okay. Because guess what? If you lift, Kevin, I don't get muscles. I got to lift. And too often people got to lift their own theory. And what I mean, they have to stretch it. They have to test it. They got to put it through the rubric. They have to do it. So when someone comes up and challenge it, you already did the exercise. Most people go in conversations very unprepared. They come in already predefined on what they're going to say instead of trying to hear Kevin's perspective. It's not a threat. Curiosity will mitigate the bias because it doesn't fear the unknown. And I think we need more curiosity as opposed to judgment, which shut everybody down. Two words. When I'm talking to somebody, do I challenge the person or do I condemn them? If you condemn them, the wall comes down. If you challenge them, a door can be open.
All right, all right. You know what's going to happen. There's some young sister that's listening to going to be listening to this podcast, and she's going to be all upset because her husband didn't load the dishwasher right. He's going to walk in the house. She's going to be in the living room. She's going to be doing this or stretching and whatever. And he's going to say, "What's wrong with you, baby? I'm just stretching right now because you didn't unload the dishwasher. Be prepared because you're tight." uh, Alex, you know something? I'm going to tell you, brother, this was a long time coming.
Yeah,
Love you, my
yeah,
man.
likewise.
I got a list of 100 people that I started last year that I said I was going to showcase and talk about the secrets of success. It's my Hall of Fame for my podcast. I would very much like to add your name to the list if
Yeah,
you would honor me so allow me to, that privilege.
yeah.
Uh, I'm going to ask you what motivates? What are the things that get you going every single day that are repetitive habits that make you successful? I'm not talking about your bank account
Yeah.
because I already got your password. I'm going to put that in the show notes. Make a withdrawal. I mean, I'm telling you, a dozen people can make a withdrawal out of his account. He won't even notice it until Wednesday. What's today? Today's Monday, so get it out before. Um, but everyone has daily habits, especially successful people. And a lot of times I surround myself with people that are like-minded people, which is the
Mhm.
reason why I've been hounding you for 3 years.
Yeah,
And I'm going to bring you back a couple of times because there's some
yeah.
things to talk about because, I want to talk about name, images, and likeness
Oh,
and the
yes. Yes.
responsibility that goes on with our young athletes because we're all chasing the bag.
Yeah.
Okay. And we're all chasing something that can't be caught. And that's the reason why, money comes and money goes and money has no
Hmm.
loyalty. And I want to make sure our young people know when they look out their window what they should actually be seeing versus what
Hmm.
they think they should see. Again, a debate or an argument. We can have
Mhm.
that going down the road. I ain't going to talk about politics. I'm not going to talk about the stuff that's going on because it's crazy. I don't
Yeah.
agree. I don't agree with any of the stuff that's going on
Nope.
because I personally believe we're set up. But you are a person. You're a thinker.
Hmm.
You stretch. You lift the heavy
Hmm.
weight. You sit back. You're the
Hmm.
last person in a conversation to speak. And when you speak, you say things that need to be heard. So there's got to be some secrets. Okay. Uh, Go ahead. I'm going to flip the switch. Tell me. It could be a list of 10. It could be five things. What gets you going in the morning and what's consistent to get, what is your purpose? Let's ask that. What is your purpose?
Well, one of the things that I love doing what I'm doing is because I like empowering people with knowledge to equip them to be better people, right? And the first thing I have to do in that is model that. What gets me going is I like being healthy. I have a routine. I meditate. I work out 6 days a week, right? I eat healthy. And more importantly is I have a saying, what's eating you that's causing you to eat? And what you're eating is not healthy. You got to get rid of it, right? So I do those daily things each day to make sure I stay disciplined. My goal is I want people to be healthy as individuals first, because then you can turn that into a healthy relationship, a healthy family, a healthy worker, empowering social dynamics. Everything begins with you. And if I can enlighten people, right, to just get them to think objectively, critically, in a constructive manner, I got you home. And more importantly, if it's anything I want to say to people that I want people to really walk away with, I want to help people discover themselves. When you ask people, what do you want to be when you grow up? People really pick themselves. They say what they want, where they want to go, and who they want to be. And that's usually someone else. If we can get people to have their own level of autonomy and then become interdependent of one another, then that's when people will be free. Too often, people don't know who they are. And that's the question I ask them. Who are you? And the world has hid you from you. Because once you discover who you are, then you'll take your mind back. And one of the things we said earlier, Kevin, we're going to come back, are your thoughts bought? Did somebody buy your thinking? And what do I mean? Your mind is the most great thing you have. And I said this at another speech. I can't stop a bird from flying around on the top of my head, but I can sure enough stop it from building a nest on my head. Build your mind, get your mind back, and more importantly, find out who you are. People do three things, and I saw it from an old saying. First level people talk about people. Second level people talk about things. Third level people talk about ideas. And fourth level people talk about getting it done. You're on mute. You're on mute.
Oh God, that ping in the back. It's funny. You told me you're going to give me three things. You gave me four.
It's
That's
sometimes.
smart people can't count. Okay, that's the reason why we have them on the show. We got smart people to give you wisdom. This is not nuggets. This is solid gold right here. So, Alex, how do we get in touch with you?
So you can go to the Relationship Lab, my YouTube channel, and you can subscribe. You can go to For Mankind. That's had my contact information there. Once again, the number four, MANKIND.net. And you can get me there. And I'm available, Kevin, like you are. I'm just
Hey,
available in a different way.
and the nice thing about it is that you are um, a respected father.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
you are not a beneficiary of any type of social whatever
yeah,
that they put out there, no affirmative action or whatever. You are
yeah,
made. I'm going to say
yeah,
self-made.
yeah,
And you're always one of these people that's always there, no matter who you are, no matter what color you are, no matter what
yeah,
age, you pass on this wisdom no matter what.
yeah,
Speak to young, old people,
yeah,
women, whatever, and everyone that sits down and talks with you, they're in awe, including myself.
yeah. Thanks, man. Thanks.
I hope my listeners have enjoyed this episode of Talking with Kevin and Sons. I want you to remember this: to grow, you must make some mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
To have confidence, you must address your anxieties.
Mm-hmm.
Forgive yourself. You must
Mm-hmm.
hold you accountable. And to learn, I'm going to say what Alex said, you got to stretch. You got to unlearn some stuff. So,
Mm-hmm.
and to exist, you have to show up more. You have to show up as your own authentic
Mm-hmm.
self, not the conversation you're having or what
Mm-hmm.
someone thinks you are. All right. When someone asks you about who you are, don't give them your resume.
Yeah.
Tell them exactly who you are. And
Mm-hmm.
to understand, and Alex said this earlier, the power of your words. Your
Yes.
words will either build or destroy.
Mm-hmm.
This is the notes for your mindset messenger. We have covered a lot of information, folks, here, and we've had a little fun. We laughed a little bit with a friend. Like I said, I hope it's not 3 more years that
Nah, nah.
on this show. And for my listeners, okay, everything I do it for you. I've
Mm-hmm.
gotten to a point in life that I can help other people, and that's what I'm doing. That's what my grandfather told me. He's, if you like what you heard, go to my YouTube page,
Mm-hmm.
RMK Productions and Network. I'm probably the only podcaster will tell you, I'm not going to ask you to like, comment, or subscribe. For the simple fact is, I surround myself with a very small, unique group of people. I call them high to call to action people, people that get involved. My friends and my circle of friends, they don't drive by an accident. They stop to help. I can boast right now, unless someone else out there, you can correct me. Right now, I think I'm the only one outside of Oprah. Out of the 4 years that I've been doing this, I'm going into my fifth year. I've had 7 people that have answered this question I'm about to answer, ask Alex. 7 people, when I ask them their ask, that one wish or that one dream that can come true. And I always say, make this big. So I'm prefacing this so Alex can start to think while I'm telling this story. I've had 7 total strangers. And the first one was Monique Wells from Paris, France. They gave a $50,000 endowment for a teacher in the Bronx that was a guest on my show. The last person to have someone answer their ask was Junior. Um, his name, we both know him, Junior, from the Steve Harvey show, has sickle cell anemia. His
Mm.
dream is to have his own health center in order for people that have sickle cell to come there and like St. Jude's, be addressed. A person on our podcast gave him 35 acres in Houston, Texas to build his facility on.
Mm.
That's a big ask. So, Alex, I'm going to ask you, and then make your ask big. If you had one ask to be, and someone out there could grant you or help you, what would that ask be?
I am building an app that have people make healthy decisions, and I want it to be the number one app out there. The ask would be is looking for folk who have that same vision I do to make conversations much healthier and giving people the right tools to make the right decisions where they live, they work, and where they socialize as an investment opportunity. That's what I'm looking at. And we are in a prototype of that app to have it be the number one app to help people make healthy decisions.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard. All right, he's making a safe app in order for people to come and make some healthy decisions from whatever. And I think that's what we need today. We need to feel safe,
Hmm.
both at home, work, in our hearts, and even how we live our lives. We need to be safe. So that's the end of our show. We're going to wrap up unless Alex has one more thing. I'm going to tell you, Alex, there is a warm seat always here for you.
Okay,
There's a glass of
okay.
cold water. You're welcome back anytime. Just give me a call.
Yeah.
And to my listeners, you can go in and go to RMK info at rmkproductions.org if you'd like to be on the show or you have someone that you think is doing something for their community, that's giving back, that's making a difference. We would love to hear their story and have them on the show also. So my grandfather said, when you get to a place in life that you can help someone else out, he said it's your duty to do so. He said, reach one, teach one. And with that said, ladies and gentlemen, we fade to black and we're out. Thank you. Until next time.